Hi everyone, I'm Laura from Duo and this is Sarah. And part of what we're doing during this time is we are starting a series called Leaders Who Lead. So this is going to be a 6-week free process for any leaders of businesses who are looking for some additional insight at this time. So we are going to be doing some weekly conversations that we're going to put up on here on LinkedIn. And then there's also going to be an element that sits on our online learning platform, which you can access for free. We'll put the link below, which just gives you some additional resources and exercises and tools to work through. So this week, we are going to just have a conversation around how do businesses create some certainty in amongst all of the current uncertainty. So Sarah, I don't know if you want to kick us off.
Yeah. One of the things we've been chatting through with some of our clients and really exploring moving forward is how do you create sort of constance in an environment which is exposed to uncertainty. So it's really about looking at the things within your business and with your team that you can remain static. So a lot of feedback we're getting from people is that structure is key for them to be able to sort of manage and maintain levels of productivity and focus. So, where you can, if you're managing a team or leading a business, how can you make sure that you are providing some consistency for the business and the people within the business? So it's putting in place things that potentially you were doing before, not so that they feel like the norm, almost like those monthly meetings, those weekly catch-ups, those where you can, if you had plans, keep them where possible so that they feel familiar. And even now, there might have been some things that potentially some of our clients have paused because of the uncertainty, but now feels a more informed time to unpause them and start to develop new constants for the business. I suppose some of it's around where do you put your focus? Where can a business really prioritize their efforts?
Yeah, because I think that there's almost this driver, isn't there, around, well, should we be doing this when we're doing it virtually? It almost goes against all of your management practices around have certain conversations face to face. And we actually just were talking before with a group around should you be having performance management conversations currently, because it feels like you're outside the business and you've always been told to sit down face to face, but you can't. This is going to be our new norm for a while, so you've got to, and you sometimes that's almost a routine that you've got into with the team. So still do appraisals, still have performance conversations, still do all of those things that you would do, albeit a little bit differently. Another piece around the uncertainty piece is action. That feels for a lot of businesses like action has either slowed down or in some cases it's paused. And even for businesses that are still busy, there's lots of businesses where this hasn't impacted them the way it has others, but that the actions have probably changed. And for some people, it's a much faster pace. Whichever way you look at it, the action level has changed. So it's making sure that you drive it where it needs to be driven, but also in the right way and with the right levels of focus. One question that we're asking a lot of is really simply, what is the one thing that would make the biggest difference to you right now? And whether you're asking team members that, whether you're asking clients that, it's a really simple question that a lot of people, they can't help but react to it. Yeah. The meeting piece is an interesting one as well around actions. And this is something that we do a lot of work on with clients regardless of this situation, just in meetings in general. But I think a lot of people are getting meeting fatigue from a virtual standpoint, but also it's tough to drive accountability of actions when you're in an office and you see people every day, or you're in a facility and you see people every day. So that's even more important now. We use something really simple called an action register, and it's just something that we've seen a couple of clients use it, and it's really useful for detailing down all the actions that come out of a meeting, allocating somebody as the accountable person for that and putting a date on it and putting it in some sort of place that everybody can access, whether that's OneDrive, Google Drive, any sort of online portal that people can go in and update. I think really that visibility of actions is such a huge piece currently, and that people still see that there's pace, there's still important things happening. The business is not on pause. and you're still going to hold people accountable. That sort of accountability for driving action is still, it's still there, is such a biggie. But I know from a leadership standpoint, you know, there's other pieces around how we seem to be getting asked that question around how do I communicate? How do I get my message across in the right way? And how do I get people to bring problems to me? And that's that vulnerability piece, isn't it? So it's that.
I know we did a session with some leaders last week, and one of the things that they were saying was a particular challenge was almost being able to hook into their emotional intelligence, to be able to switch that on. You know, the business strategy stuff seems to be coming more natural and people go into process mode and thinking through the strategy, but that emotional intelligence piece for some leaders is really tricky. And now more than ever, you need to be able to think about when it's appropriate to switch that on. You know, there's a time and a place for sometimes even showing some vulnerability, to be able to say to someone that potentially you may have found something difficult isn't a weakness, that actually can open the doors for conversations with some of your, you know, if you're leading a management team, making it a safe place for people to be able to bring things forward. And I know with management, they're often saying things like, one of our biggest concerns is people aren't bringing things to us, and we're not sure if people are struggling or they're not struggling. And actually, how do we get people to be more open? And you know, a lot of the work that we do with some of our clients currently is around saying, well, you need to open the communication channels and keep asking the questions, but be open and don't be afraid to share vulnerability, even through, like, we had a client who did a video message to the whole business, and that was just for him to be able to, in a consistent, open manner, be able to say to everybody, I appreciate this is tough and we're here for you and we're living my values. And you know, it was a great message. And I think so there's lots of different means to be able to do that, whether that's in a group setting or on a one-to-one basis. But the golden rule really with this stuff is to open communication channels up and don't be afraid to show that you're in tune with your emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, you touched on it a little bit there, but like opening up that opportunity to understand people and to ask questions. You know, again, we were having some conversations last week around lockdown and, you know, some businesses starting to get people back to work. And, you know, for some businesses, some people have been working in the office the entire time, especially management level often. And I think there is in some businesses some challenge between people who've been working from home, people who've been working in the office, and is there resentment building up? And I think it's making sure that you're asking and not telling. So, you know, as an example, there's, you know, someone was having a conversation around how do I have this conversation with getting people back to work? I don't understand why they're fearful of it. And actually what they were doing during that conversation was telling someone all the reasons that they shouldn't be worried about coming back to work, and not actually asking what potentially was at the bottom of that. So what's underneath that fear for you? You know, what are some of the things that we can do to make sure that you feel comfortable about this? And often what you end up doing is you alienate the people because you're actually telling them things that's not their worry in the first place. You're sort of presuming to know what their challenge is. Just ask them. You know, we've got so many clients doing some great stuff around that, whether that's asking one-on-one. Last week we spent a lot of time doing some back to work surveys for clients around gaining intel really from their team around what would you like to see, what are some of your biggest fears or concerns right now, and what can we do about that? Because first of all, it just makes your job easier as a leader and a manager, because you're actually making decisions based on information from your team versus you sort of guessing and putting the pieces together. So
yeah, and not just that, you're making informed decisions. So you're placing precious time, precious resource and potentially investment into the places where it counts and makes the biggest impact.
Yeah, 100%.
So
those are just a few little things, you know, that we're seeing around that piece around driving certainty. So if you want to learn more about this piece, we've actually put together some exercises around all the things that we've talked about, and given you some example questions and things like that in the online learning piece. So we'll put a link below. Like we said, it's free. This is just us wanting to do something to give back, and give some insight to people that maybe aren't working with us currently. So just click on the link below. You can sign up and register and access that. And then every week for the next 6 weeks, we'll be releasing new modules that you can also work through. So as always, reach out if you have any questions directly to Sarah or I, and we're just happy to help. Thanks.